Yes, alright, I know it was Wigan, but tell me that this doesn't feel just inherently more threatening than this. This video is not to say that we've cracked it suddenly, nor that Arteta has seen the light. Seriously, he hasn't just gone to the players and said, "You know what, lads? I fancy some more central access today." But that same message is something Arteta, I think, communicates actually subconsciously to his players by who he picks and how he platforms them. And so it might be Wigan, but the new partnerships and dynamics on show, the fresh ideas that I want to dig into today, Saka's central freedom, for example, how he interacted with Madueke and Ben White on the right-hand side, Eza in that other 10 slot, the verticality to our play Mikel spoke about, how we're finally platforming Gabriel Martinelli to be this frighteningly unpredictable dasher in behind, and so much more is what I want to get my teeth into. Today, thankfully, is not about the risk-reward debate I've had my fair share of thoughts on in recent weeks, but it's this little snippet, this little on-pitch sample of what we could look like. Even if it was encouraged by last-minute injuries, in the words of Jean Renoir, I have a feeling that this message can be truly meaningful only if it hasn't been planned in advance. If it appears little by little by itself. Enough with the waffle, I'm sorry. Let's talk Saka, and let's talk Saka Central. But first, these are the dynamics. This is the balance of what was so refreshing for me against Wigan. And, in my opinion, Arsenal's best look, best feel of the season came when Mourinho was dropping from that centre-forward position. But we found the counter movements crucially off him. The personnel against Wigan was different, but the balance is so similar. The pocket presence. The wingers freed up to be goal hungry and unpredictable with their running angles. There's a clear base as well. With Calafiori's injury, Miles was shifted back to left back against Wigan and still played a very Calafiori-esque role, interchanging high and low in the pockets with Eza, hunting for gaps off the ball. But let's zoom in now on Saka. After the match, Mikel highlighted the difficulty in picking up Saka's reference and how intelligently he moves through spaces when he has this central licence. Watch how Saka makes that lateral movement on the blind side of the defender. Norgard was superb across the match again, but look what happens simply when you trust who you're passing to between the lines. You can whip the ball into Saka here because you know how unshakable he is against contact. I'll talk more about this with Eza and Martinelli, but these faster vertical sequences give wide centre-backs in those pesky back fives critical decisions to make. Do you jump onto Saka and leave room for the wingers who suddenly have the option now to run out to in? Look at Madueke's goal. It's the threat of what Saka can do that Madueke smells. But then you've got Eza dropping and playing a pass he's already shown, by the way, he's got in his locker, with White also able to do. These are the kinds of doomed if you do, doomed if you don't situations I want us to create more against teams. Because if you do engage with Saka, he can spin and shrug you off instead. Suddenly too, we can get close to one another. Eza and Saka can make those 10-to-10 connections I've banged on about for some time now. But the same goes for finding Martinelli more often. Saka suddenly has runners to hit. And, more selfishly, it's not always about him making that first pass inside the block, but he can shoot more from here. Inherently more threatening. But, I do not want us to take for granted what it means to have someone in Saka so inevitable 1v1 against any opponent, or have one of the best creative hubs in football on the touchline. We saw Saka and Madueke rotate, yes, but Noni isn't someone comfortable sitting and waiting inside a block while someone else receives out wide. It's something to think about. We will need Saka's creative presence on the touchline more often than not, I still do believe. But playing Saka central has to be on Mikel's mind, more than just a possibility, as he said, with Dauman, Waneri and of course Madueke demanding of more and more minutes in the future. One of my slight frustrations in recent weeks is the lack of use of Ben White, especially the lack of use of a Ben White when it feels like a Ben White game. I've just said Ben White a lot of times in that sentence. And first of all, White thankfully eased any injury concerns on Instagram after that game against Wigan. But our game, let's be honest, has missed those kind of quarterback clips in behind to the right winger. How Ben White can sit a little bit lower before crucially arriving on the overlap. There was a variation refreshingly to see in the spaces the right back occupied against Wigan. Sometimes doing that, yes, inside pinning job to create easy access to Madueke. Sometimes sitting though and having that split second of patience that White has on the ball to bait, then hit runners, or sometimes just let Madueke and Saka swirl above him. And what's also been missed is that White, tucking into a back three, allows Saliba to spend more time in the middle of that back line. The dynamics here just feel less complicated, don't they? And I think the same can be said for Esta and for Martinelli, a pair I've repeatedly said seem to connect naturally, don't they, on the pitch, and not just on the left-hand side. I've spoken about Martinelli's tweaked right wing role, allowing him to pinch into this front two pairing Arteta has deployed recently. The speed that Martinelli wants to play at too, but also when he does dash in behind. I honestly don't think there are many players out there who possess the same level of threat. And Arteta gave him this same freedom from left wing against Wigan, which was so wonderful to see. Remember when I was speaking about Saka earlier and that double threat he poses inside of maybe forcing a defender to jump onto him and open that space up for Madueke? Just watch Martinelli's goal against Wigan. Look at the similarities again to our early season dominance, how Martinelli has abandoned that width and is hinging off Jesus. Saka and Esta can just sit. White gives us still that outside threat, and Saliba and Norgard have the trust, intent and quality to wait to then speed it up through the lines. And this is what Manchester City have done so well this season. And it's funny that we create a similar kind of diamond in our front quartet of players that Man City do themselves, with Norgard finding Esta, and the touch, the spin and the release from Esta gives us a lot of, funnily enough, what Marino and Kai Havertz have done in that shadow striker role, and Martinelli when he's chopping and changing, as I'll say again, like this, dashing and firing off either foot. That's how you rediscover a player. I wish I could speak longer, but why do I think that this could be potentially so significant for our season? This could be one of those learning through seeing games for Mikel. There will rightly be an appetite, I think, to see these relationships on the pitch again, and Wolves could be another great opportunity for that. Questions still remain. Would a setup like this mean a shift to a 4-1-4-1 block out of possession? Probably. The Rice and Zubimendi pairing should still be our preferred option, in my opinion, especially for the toughest of matchups. But that doesn't mean we can't still see a Martinelli and Esta dynamic. We just flip the midfield balance, moving Rice further right. The Twin Tens also feel like a genuine setup and approach for games when the onus is on us to break it open. Saka in that high right slot is something we should want to see a bigger sample of too. And things have felt, haven't they, like they've needed refreshing recently. But if this is to kind of spur on a new chapter of our season, it's a new chapter that, crucially, we are not starting at zero from. But we are starting 4 points clear at the top of the Premier League, through in the Champions League, in the final of the League Cup, and now in the 5th round of the FA Cup. What we saw against Wigan was potentially a refreshed Arsenal, but a refreshed Arsenal with this platform already. And that is a really exciting place to be in. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you shortly in the next one. See you later.